Ismail Abdulsalam, BeatsBoxingMayhem.com. I'm here with a very special guest. This is an undefeated welterweight, 15-0. Calling out everybody. He wants all the smoke at welterweight. I had to reach out to him because he's named, unlike a lot of fighters, he's named two people in particular that he wants to get in the ring with. I'm here with none other than Blair the Flair Cobbs. Blair, how you doing today, man?
I'm doing great. I'm living a blessed life.
Great, glad to hear that. So let's get right to it. The reason I reached out to you is roughly a little bit less than a week ago, we got a press release, us in the media, that there's two people in particular that you're hunting for at welterweight. You named Adrien Broner and Conor Benn. Very interesting, two different fighters at two different stages of their careers. Why these two in particular were your targets for your next upcoming fight?
Blair Flair is the most exciting man in boxing. I look forward to putting on a big show. Honestly, when I look at these two guys, they have great potential to put on a great show that's gonna please the audience inside and outside the ring.
So let's start with Conor Benn. Ironically, he just signed a big deal with Matchroom, a long-term deal. So to me, being that you fought on that platform before with the Zone, it seems like it makes this an easier fight to make. But what did you think of his last fight against Adrian Granados? I've been hearing, back and forth commentary on that. Some people were impressed that he was able to go the distance. Other people think it showed chinks in his armor because he was having difficulty, tracking him down, dealing with the movement. As a boxer, what was your assessment of how he did in that fight?
I accept assessment is basically that like he did a really good job and he made it through his fight and like there's much more to see and much more to come out of him in the later on down the road and nothing's gonna be much more of a test than somebody as powerful and great like Blair Flair.
Gotcha. And what makes that matchup so interesting to me? If we look at your last fight against Brad Solomon, you were very aggressive. You went after him, you attacked him, really didn't take any backward steps in the fight. So when you think about that type of style up against Conor Benn, very explosive. Now, on the other hand, because you were so aggressive, I think you got hit a little bit more than what people are used to. Any type of danger in taking that type of style against somebody like Conor Benn, who's such a big puncher, would you have any trepidation of fighting that same type of aggressive fight?
No,
Hmm.
not at all. Like I get hit a whole lot less than what people think.
Okay.
Like many times, I'm rolling punches. Whereas though like I will turn my head as the punch is coming. Or like a lot of little things like that. I'm very, very quick. I'm very hard to catch. And I can go from defense to offense, and I can blend my offense and defense almost seamless into a pretty into a pretty interesting ass whooping. Let's just put it like that. So it's and I would love to test my abilities on people like Conor Benn. Because honestly, I'm really used to whipping up on these young guys, like just coming out and having pretty good backgrounds as far as being undefeated and all that stuff. That's kind of like my norm. That's all I've been doing is whipping up on guys like that as far as my career. And it's like, why not?
Right.
I don't really run away from a fight, but those two fights are really good fights for me. And I know Conor Benn, he puts on a pretty good show inside and outside the ring. He has a pretty good following. His following is coming up.
Right.
So hopefully later on down the road, we can probably put on a big show that can have like one of these belts on the line and be a big high status fight. Somebody like Adrien Broner is perfect, honestly, right now for me. If it's possible for them to get in the ring with me right now, that'd be perfect. I really don't want to ruin like these young fighters so quickly, but I can do it,
Right.
because I'm ready right now to pretty much fight anybody, and I don't really see too much hard work for the young fighters, especially that's like up and coming. But for people like Adrien Broner, I think that's going to be really interesting. I think people like even with Adrien Broner, people think that like he's like over. He's not. He's a, he's only 1 year. He's only 1 year older than me. He's nowhere near like finished in his career, you know. And he's still a problem. He's still a problem, Adrien Broner. So like I would love to take that fight. That looks like a fight that's possible, and that will be a big fight for boxing. We need big shows in boxing, and that's like what I'm looking for. I'm looking for something that's memorable. You know, I'm not the kind of fighter that you pay to see. I'm just not. I'm the guy that you pay to remember. And I want to be a long-lasting impression and memory when it comes to boxing.
That's interesting you say that about about Adrien Broner because it seems like since he's got that Pacquiao payday, he's very selective on when he wants to fight. You know, you got to the mountaintop, you got the big payday. So do you think you're going to have difficulty enticing him to come out to fight? He did have that, comeback fight earlier this year. So do you think it'll be hard to get someone like him in the ring? Because he might look at you as, high risk, low reward, because it's probably not going to be a pay-per-view fight. He might be just looking for those big paydays to close out his career.
Oh, no. I don't even think it's going to be that big of a problem of getting somebody like Adrien Broner in the ring with me. Why? Because it is a pay-per-view attraction. It's going to be blown up like no other. It's a big show. It's a big show. It's a big fight. You got two very powerful, charismatic characters. That's such an easy fight to promote as far as like, promotional wise. Television ratings, that will probably go up the roof.
Right.
Can you imagine these two characters just being next to each other?
Right.
It's just gonna be fun. And honestly, it'll probably be the best payday that he can probably get. It's not like he's gonna be fighting another Mayweather or Pacquiao or anybody else of that magnitude, because that time is over, and he needs somebody that's going to be able to captivate the imagination of an audience, and that's Blair Flair.
Style-wise, would you say he would be the more difficult one to crack between him and Conor Benn as far as matchup-wise against you?
No, it's all about numbers. It's all about numbers, and we got plenty of numbers. We got plenty of numbers and plenty of money. We're going to figure that out. We're going to figure out that puzzle, figure out how things can get put together. So I don't know. I don't think either one of those fights are going to be like too hard to pull off. I really don't. I don't know. I think that as far as like for like the young fighters like Conor, Benn, or Ortiz, or those other fighters, basically those young fighters that's kind of up and coming, like they're still on the rise. I think that like it's almost a shame if they end up fighting me because it'll shut them down completely real fast, And it'll be another classic Blair Flair show, with woos and, Blair Flair is the biggest underdog. And then next thing you know it, Blair Flair wins again. And, and the people will be sitting here wondering, like, oh, maybe they weren't that good. No, they were good. It's just, it was Blair Flair's time. So it's just one of those things right now, whereas though like, so if it's like that, then the best shows that Blair Flair can be on would be somebody like Adrien Broner, Jesse Vargas, Mikey Garcia, pretty much all of those guys, all of those guys that's in that range right now, that's worthy of captivating a vacant WBC title, let's say, for instance, or IBF title, for instance. Hey, these titles want to be involved with a big money maker. That big money maker is Blair Flair. I truly believe so. and I'm not like, I don't need a whole lot of time to
Right.
like groom me as a fighter. And oh yeah, I don't need 1,000 knockouts. You just put me in there with like a Top Gun and let it promote itself.
I like to hear that. I like to hear that. And like you mentioned, with the woos and everything. So even in WWE, it's a good time right now because we got a new champion. Big E won the belt. That was a big occasion last week. I kind of wanted to get your take on where wrestling is now, in your opinion, because we got different federations. We have AEW. We have people that have jumped. CM Punk and Bryan Danielson are the two that come to mind. How do you feel the state of wrestling is now, and how do you feel, or anything that boxers can learn and continue to take from pro wrestling that you've already done so far to kind of promote themselves?
Well, wrestling always been like one of the biggest, powerful like movements when it comes to entertainment. I think right now it's just they're in this phase. They're just in a real awkward phase right now. Honestly, one of the biggest problems when it came to like the wrestling world and how it kind of like faded out as far as like the popularity as it used to be, is because of the UFC. Like the
Yeah.
UFC kind of just like, kind of took over most of those WWF and back in the day WCW fans, that kind of like, they kind of like turned over to the UFC in many aspects. And so like they're kind of like in a medium off a little bit weird phase right now, until like a big superstar comes and emerges, like The Rock and like John Cena, which like all these guys kind of like just passed. They just passed. Stone Cold, Steve Austin, all these great performers. But when it comes to boxing and like in my craft, the best that's done it took a lot of their understanding of being charismatic, of captivating the audience and captivating the imagination of the people, came from this partnership between wrestling and boxing. It's probably one of the other people that do it as good as I'm doing it. Like it's Muhammad Ali, like
Right.
Ali and many and countless others. It seemed like Ali kind of just started, with Gorgeous George and all that stuff, and then like you start seeing more and more characters in boxing that kind of pattern themselves to be not just a good fighter but a great fighter, and now here I am, the next big major attraction, the next $1 billion fighter is on the cusp of greatness.
But when you also think about that partnership, the fact that, and it seems like it's been happening for about, let's say, the last 15, 20 years, where all the behind the scenes stuff with pro wrestling is pretty much out there. Everybody kind of knows everything, journalists and everybody can get into the business. And then you've seen the dark side of the ring thing that they've had going on, kind of going back in history of some of the tragic stories. But the recent one they talked about was Ric Flair and some of the issues he may have had with sexual harassment and things like that. For you as a big fan that's taken some of your skills from pro wrestling, does that disappoint you any, the fact that you're kind of learning more about your heroes, how they were outside of the ring, or are you able to kind of separate the performers from the actual person behind the scenes?
Well, I separate it completely. At the end of the day, we're all human beings, when we're all battling demons. I'm a very strong Christian believer, and the thing is, like, I understand that everyone is battling whatever they're doing and whatever's going on outside the ring, and like outside that arena of entertainment, because even when they get out of the ring of whatever they're doing, but they're outside of that arena in entertainment, they still have to go through their trials and tribulations as a man And as a woman, you still have to go through your tribulations. My heart just goes out to people that are going through whatever they're going through. And because like it's a sickness, whatever it is, a lot of times it's a sickness. If they're molesters, if they're this or if they're that, I go about thinking about those type of things in a more empathetic way, and knowing that like that could be me, like in any kind of case, that could be me. Even though without a shadow of a doubt, I'm not that kind of person, but like I have empathy, and I don't have enough pride in my heart to sit here and cast judgment. So I just pray for these people, outside of once they are like in their real life, in the real world. I'm gonna be honest with you. Sometimes it's hard. It's hard living a regular life when you're out there and then you're living this character, living this persona, and living this reality in entertainment. Sometimes it's hard to battle whatever you're going through as a human being because you're just put so high on this pedestal of greatness, and enjoying this big ride, and everybody's enjoying it with you, and like it's like almost as if like, oh, you can do no wrong. Like, and then you have to sit yourself back a little bit, like, look, man, you got some problems, but like this right here, this is a problem. You need to fix this. This is not okay. So and I just my heart goes out to any and everybody that's possibly dealing with whatever they're dealing with, in their regular life, because these are, like, at the end of the day, they're all children of God, and and nobody is void of the trials and tribulations of life, man.
That's true. That's true. And going back to your last fight, one thing I did notice at ringside, which was nice to see, was Bernard Hopkins. He was cheering the most, when you were putting it on Brad Solomon. So I wanted to know if there's any particular tips and things like that he's been giving you recently as you've been moving up in your career, being that he's been to the mountaintop and he's been known for his, trash talking and colorful personality too. I wonder what the biggest gems you were able to get from him just, going forward in your career.
Man, I took a lot of things from him. I learned a lot. When me and Bernard Hopkins have a very interesting relationship. He known me, and we spent time before all of this even got started. He seen me when I was homeless, and he saw me go out and conquer the world and get what I need to become who I am today, and come back to him like as a different man. So he's seen different like seasons in my life. He saw me when I was just a kid, as an amateur. He saw me as a kid that's just started as a pro and is 4-0 and couldn't get in a fight because nobody wants to fight somebody like me. Like, I'm be honest, nobody's gonna pay for an ass whooping. So you couldn't pay anybody enough money to get in the ring with me, especially if it was only going to be like $1,000. So like, so I went through a whole lot of different phases, and like he was there to see me through a lot of those different phases. So we have a very interesting relationship, and I learned a lot. There's a lot of times when he took me to the side and just schooled me on how to better the quality of living, eating healthy, training like as if it's a business, and doing things as far as like outside the ring, conducting yourself like a gentleman and as a businessman.
Absolutely. So I also wanted to get your take overall on the welterweight division as a whole. So we know there's matches that people are looking at. We just had Pacquiao possibly have his last fight, so that's going to at this point maybe transitioning it to completely the new period. But you also have other fights that may not happen. People are still looking at Spence-Crawford. That's up in the air. We do know Crawford's going to be fighting Sean Porter in November. That may upset the apple cart if Sean Porter were to win. So I kind of just wanted to get your take overall on how you feel the welterweight division is looking. At a point, people did say it was the most talented division in boxing. You don't hear that as much anymore, but I do believe the talent is still there. I just want to get your take on how you feel the division is currently going into 2021.
Well, there was a big problem when it came to boxing, and the big problem was that we had PBC and like the PBC fighters where they will round robin everybody at the same time and circulate the belts amongst each other for a very, very long time. And it got to a point where like, and then it even got to a point where a lot of great matches weren't being made. We have the Mayweather era where everybody wants to be like Mayweather and be undefeated and not fight nobody and not be challenged and all of the nonsense, and then you have like a whole new era, a whole new generation of fighters, and they don't have belts. Why? Because they're being like just cuffed up in this whole Al Heyman PBC setup, and it's very frustrating, and it's very frustrating to even hear about a fight about like let's say Earl Spence and Terrence Crawford. I'm sick and tired of both of them, and like I'm to a point where I'm ready to smack both of them up. Like honestly, I'm ready to put the beat street on both of those guys if they so please, just so we can be done with them. If they keep playing games, Blair Flair's powerful status and power status is going to go through the roof eventually. Because even if I fought Adrien Broner right now, boom, we don't have to ever hear about Earl Spence or Terrence Crawford ever again. Like, ever again. Yeah, you know what? I'm done with you guys. How about that? Earl Spence, you're not getting your belt back. No, you're just not. You did absolutely nothing for boxing. Like, what I mean? The closest thing that he did was fight Kell Brooks. Like, I don't know. Like, these guys, these fighters, I'm sick and tired of these fighters because they're not putting on big shows and they're not entertainers. They're not making boxing great. They're not making boxing special. Yes, you can fight. Yes, you're a good fighter. That ain't good enough. It ain't good enough to be just a good fighter anymore. It ain't good enough to be a good fighter. Yes, Terrence Crawford is a tremendous athlete. Very, very well respected. Why? Because he can box. But at the end of the day, he's boring as hell. Like, at the end of the day, man, like, if he don't fight Earl Spence, his career means nothing. Nothing.
Right.
Nothing. If he got in the ring with me, that'd probably be his biggest payday. Why? Because it'd be actually a well like anticipated fight that finally went through. Like finally Terrence Crawford's fighting somebody. Like, no, man, this is and I just got started. I'm his biggest draw, and I just got started. There's a problem with that.
And it seems like that
man.
opening has kind of led to the Paul brothers, that, like you said, that showmanship opening that's lacking in a lot of fighters. It's resulted in somebody filling the void.
Exactly.
Jake Paul and Logan Paul, as much as people don't like it.
Exactly. There's a big giant void. Why? Because you have people like Terrence Crawford and Earl Spence that's not fighting each other. First of all, they're both born, but they're not even fighting each other. And they think they can make more money not fighting each other. That don't make no sense. And then you have like this whole new generation, and then you have people like me that's supposed to be already there. You know what I mean? Like, honestly, like these belts supposed to be like given up already to people like me. What's it called? Devin Haney already has a belt. Right. But people like me, as far as like even Ortiz should have a world title right now. You know, people like Conor Benn. All three of us should have a world title right now, talking shit and fighting each other, you know? But there's a problem with that. We have these guys, and everybody wants to be undefeated, you know, and that's not a good look. So what ends up happening is there's a big problem with boxing. So then you have people that's trying to fill the void, like Logan Paul and like all these other like influencers and old ass fighters coming out of retirement and all this crazy nonsense, you know, and that is there because boxing is looking for its true champion. We need a people's champion once again. And I believe the people's champion is Blair Flair. And once that happens, then things is going to change, you know. We got the only people champion that they have right now is Canelo Alvarez. He don't give a shit. He's on his way out right now. Like, you know, he don't give a shit. You know, we need people that actually give a shit about boxing, and that's truly a people's champion. Let's get a real entertainer out there and kill it, just like the people before. I mean, hell, we had Sugar Ray Leonard, Muhammad Ali, Roberto Duran, you know, and even in more recent years, you know, the Puerto Rican from New York, Hector Camacho. All like everything was really built around that pivotal character. In recent years, Floyd Mayweather, Pretty Boy Floyd to Money Mayweather. And once those characters are gone, another one needs to take his place. Once that pivotal person leaves, they need somebody to take his place. You know, so let's make that happen.
I can't think of a better way to end. So just for people who maybe this might be their first experience looking at you from the hip hop world or the wrestling world, let them know where they can find you out on social media and keep up with your career going forward.
Absolutely. You can check me out on Instagram, Twitter, Facebook at Blair Flair. For more exciting content, of course, BlairFlair.com. Woo! The most exciting man in boxing, baby.
Perfect.